But anyway, so going to it was, I've hunted that property for a long time. My primary way of hunting is bow hunting, archery hunting. The bear you see behind me is I killed it with a bow and arrow. The elk, and there's actually several elk in my house, all bow and arrow and stuff like that. Honestly, didn't have any problems with dog hunting for a while. I actually want to make sure everybody understands this. I'm a dog hunting supporter. I don't want to see it go away. I just want to see it not become a nuisance issue, which is what has happened. And that's how I came into this. For me, trying to hunt with a bow and arrow, I had the same groups of people that would be running over me constantly. And that's only started out in the last, I'd say, 5 to 8 years. And that started being an issue. And then me being an attorney, other people started reaching out to me and wanting to, figure out what their legal causes of action were. I've also worked with DNR, like, hey, how can we fix this? How can we come to an amicable resolution? And it got to the point where, and we'll get into this a little bit later, that there's civil causes of action and there's criminal causes of action. And a lot of what's going on with these SCDNR regulations or proposals, they're not even going to be regulations, they're just proposals, is relating to the criminal side, but there's a civil side. And so on December 30th, I believe, of last year, myself and a couple of like-minded landowners said, hey, let's just form an organization that can maybe address some of our collective concerns. And essentially, I created that organization with those like-minded individuals, off the same basis that we did in ABATE. I've written legislation like H3231, the red light bill, started, with Nikki Haley being the governor and getting some of that stuff passed. And, I just took that same model from what we were doing on the motorcycle rights side to the property protection side. But at the same time, both sides, we're working to a same common goal. And that's what we'll make sure everybody understands, is that our organization is not against dog hunting. And it's a matter of, and thank you for giving me the platform and the forum to talk to you guys about this, because I think that narrative has to be corrected. If I will tell you right now, for a fact, if anybody says that they want dog hunting outlawed in South Carolina, I will step down effective immediately right now. But we do have to address some of the issues surrounding dog hunting as it pertains to South Carolina.
I got you. I don't speak for dog hunters in general. I'm just speaking for myself, and I want to make that clear. But I certainly understand where you're coming from. I've read through your bullet points and your page and looked at your outlines, and everything makes a lot of sense to me. The only thing that really stands out is, dogs trespassing. I don't mind legislation. I don't mind restrictions. I just don't want to restrict the ones doing wrong to the point that it affects us doing right. And when you start writing legislation, it don't take but one or two words, and for long you don't have anything. How do we go about creating some type of common goal, common collective, so that we weed out the bad, we keep the good? That's what we need to achieve, and I don't know what the steps forward is for that. I know my club, you don't hunt on my club unless you can stop your dogs, but I'm fortunate enough to have 360 degrees of roads around my property that we can stop our hound. And I'm the worst there is as far as stopping dogs, as far as training them, and I can stop mine, so I know anybody can. I think we have a disconnect with landowners. My landowners beside me are just as friendly as can be, but we have a disconnect throughout our community that dogs are hurting the property. And I get it that the dogs aren't hurting your property, but it is your property and you have a right to not be encroached upon. I understand that completely. So how do we go forward creating some type of legislation that does not interfere with those of us doing the right thing? That's the question for you and your association.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Thank y'all for having me on here. Yeah, my main question and concern is, are we going to be able to get together as the two organizations, the two associations, and be able to sit down and discuss and come to a mediation? is my greatest concern with all this. It seems like the bad dog hunters, are determined and set in their ways, and some of the property owners are determined and absolutely set in their ways. And that's my main concern is, are we going to be able to come to an agreement? And that's basically what I wanted to talk about the most.
Oh, you want me to take that?
Sure.
Okay. So I don't have a magic 8 ball that's going to give me the right answer. I wish I did. I wouldn't be a lawyer. I'd probably go play the lottery to give me all the right answers. I will tell you from our organization standpoint, we have tried. I gave up an entire day on Father's Day weekend to go meet with hunting organizations, with also some of the property owners and stakeholders there. As I alluded to previously, we hoped that meeting would bear fruit. It has not. Um, DNR is kind of forcing all of our hands right now to come to that same type of mediation, which I think is good. I would rather, and once again, I will and won't make sure everybody knows dog hunting does not need to go away. I dog hunt on my property, not for deer. I'm actually got, and if you don't mind me giving a shout out, Put Up or Shut Up, I'll be on their podcast and in the near coming future, giving away some stuff. But I've also invited them to come and coon hunt on my property. I also, if you look on my Facebook page, you'll see where I run dogs for pigs on my property, and we kill them with knives. I've seen it done properly. They don't get off of that property line. I got 1,000 acres right there in Lodge. They don't get off that property. They do it the right way. So I know it's possible. As a matter of fact, this bear you see right behind me in New Mexico, I killed that with a bow and arrow running dogs. Never got off the property owner. So I am not somebody that's opposed to it. And, I don't deer dog hunt. That is just not my preferred modus operandi. It has caused me problems as a property owner and has caused our membership, problems. But there's a way to get to a solution, and any mediation is what I would say is what it's probably going to end up being. My membership is not going to be happy with what they get, and the dog hunting organizations are not going to be happy with what they get. But that's the earmark of a good middle line. I don't want to over legislate. I am against over legislating things. But at the same time, the standard quo is not working. So most of the dog hunters, good guys, how do we get rid of the bad apples? And we need the guys like you asking these questions and saying, hey, here's how, what's the best way to catch, a fox? Hire another fox. So the guys that are there is y'all are going to give us the information to get rid of the bad apples, because ultimately I don't want to see it go away. But the bad apples will make it go away if it continues to permeate and create nuisances.
Hey guys, let me read some stuff from the comments, okay?
Real quick on that, Todd. I got a background, and I believe DNR has identified majority of these recidivists, but the fines were so minimal that they continue to happen. And then those of us that are trying to do right are getting punished, not now, but in the near future, possible litigation and legislation for their shortcomings. When you have repeat offenders over and over and over, because the fine isn't but $12 or $50 or whatever the case is, there's some type of habit forming, I should say. And this is what needs to happen, in my opinion, is I don't want nobody to be fined or punished, but I also don't want to lose my privileges for what you've done. So what is your organization proposing as far as what needs to happen?
Well, okay. So in relation to that, the screen's going all kinds of crazy right now. So I'm just going to keep going and talking about what we're dealing with. But no, so that is still a very nebulous process. All we're trying to do is getting rid of the nuisance dogs. Mistakes do happen. You're absolutely right. Mistakes happen. If this was only a once every other, occurrence, I would not have a problem. We would not be here. I don't think most of the guys that I represent and gals that I represent would be here. It's the recidivists that continue to have it happen. There's one thing to have a mistake. There's another thing when it's a common course of conduct. That becomes a habit. Look at it from a speeding perspective. All of us probably speed. And then law enforcement triggers it when it's like too much speeding. Okay. Like, all right, maybe you get 5 miles an hour over, 10 miles an hour. They have every right to pull you 1 mile an hour over. But when it becomes too excessive, that's when they do it. And that's kind of where we're at. It's like, all right, what point is it excessive? And what I will tell you is we had started doing some dogs at large stuff, just trying to get, some of the bad apples out. That turned out to be a conflict with Alan Wilson and the attorney general. He gave another opinion, which is an advisory opinion, which essentially took the handcuffs off of the DNR agents that were enforcing those marginal fees to their hands. They're now it's the law that's there, especially everybody wants to trigger the Renegade Act. The issue with the Renegade Act is, as its current form states, it doesn't really give DNR the tools or resources to prosecute the renegades, because they're acting in an improper fashion. So now we're trying to figure out, all right, not to change complete law, but massage or amend a law. And it might be the old adage of boiling a frog slowly. Hey, maybe we make one little change over here, one little tweak there, see if it fixes something, and if not, come back to it. We certainly do not want to go all the way over. I don't want PETA coming into this, organization, my organization or your organization, and start talking about the mishandling or treatment of dogs. That is not something that I want, period. It needs to be the proper stakeholders that are involved in this. And go from there.
Let me hop in here a little bit with some stuff from the comments.
All right, on the alpha real quick, Todd. The alpha works, but it requires you to use it. No tool is worth anything if you don't use it properly. It took me a while to learn how to actually train a dog to stop. If you can get ahead of your dog and you teach him properly, you can stop any dog. The Alabama Dog Hunters Association put out a video a few years ago. It's a 3-day process. They whistle break and tone break their dogs, and they show the deer across the road, maybe 200 yards from them, and they're not there, and they bring every dog to them. It is possible. Where I think we have a shortcoming is where property lines dissect through wooded areas instead of road lines. How do you keep dogs on your property when your property line is not divided by a road or a fire lane? These dogs don't recall like bird dogs. They don't recall like a lab. They don't go straight out and straight back. So what is the fixed action for that? I don't know. But to answer your question, the alpha systems in the hands of the right person and trained can stop a dog on a dime, no problem. I've seen dogs sight chasing deer with the tone of a button. He stops and comes to the truck, and when he gets there, he's happy to see you. It doesn't affect the dog in any way if it's done properly. Back to you there, Chad.
Hang on just a minute. Hold on just a minute, fellas. Why do so many dog hunters dodge the question on why they can't stop the dogs? That's Tyler Pearson. Tyler, were you just watching what Stephen said? I think you can rewind it. Rewind it and listen to what Stephen literally just told you. He just literally answered that question. So if you're still asking that question, put it in the comments again. But I feel like that you may have been not listening. Another guy here says, Chad, would you help us dog men gain access to more public land?
Yeah, honestly, that's one thing I want to say is that came up, and that's where I think some of this is really good about from the DNR standpoint. Is I heard some really good positions at the Florence meeting that I think are very valid from the dogman side. I mean, y'all have every right to use state ganglands like we do. Now that's going to be up to SCDNR. But I think that would certainly curtail some of the pressure that's put on us as private property owners. I think that's another solution, and that's what this conversation is about. And I want to make sure everybody understands PPA is not against dog hunting. It's about finding solutions to the problems that are there. And I think that is a potential solution. that is there. Another one that I was talking with an attorney that does, I don't want to name any names because I don't have their permission to do so. Making it mandatory to use GPS collars. Not everybody uses GPS collars. I think that could be, one thing that could, be a step in the right direction. Another thing is reaching out to Garmin or maybe even Hunt on X to maybe have automatic geofencing to where it makes it easier for the dog owners to hunt their property, and keep it off. Like I said, I think if this is just like a every once and then again occurrence, that's not going to be an issue. And, I want to circle back, if you don't mind. When it comes to us, we've got the wide gamut of my organization, that, says it could be this way or it could be that way. Some people talk about Georgia law, things like that. For me personally, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the organization, I think you treat it similar to like an assault and battery third, to where it's the property owner that needs to prosecute it. It's not DNR that comes out and prosecutes the case. It'd be the property owner, because at that point in time, the property owner and the landowner can deal with each other. And you figure out who the recidivists are. And just like prosecuting those cases, you can move to dismiss for lack of prosecution if the property owner isn't willing to press charges. So I think that's a possibility too. There's no bright line solution to this, but that's why we're having this conversation right now. Okay, so so that's another thing that we'll probably end up foiling, is going to be that particular situation. From me as so I can't answer it from a certain perspective, and I did testify as to this at the SCDNR board. I've had a couple clients, two specifically, that hit deer dogs on motorcycles and had to be life flighted out with major catastrophic bodily injuries. From that perspective, I'll tell you what happened. And we had to sign NDAs, so I'm gonna have to keep this very vague. We were able to get the license plate number of the deer dog truck, and then trace that back to the homeowner's policy.
Yes.
All right, we hear you. So it traced that back, because those deer dogs, and I think this is another thing that people need to understand. It's not just deer dogs, it's really every dog situation, domestic or otherwise. We've done the same thing with bulls or horses. If, it's allowed to be on a public roadway, you're strictly held liable from that standpoint, especially if it's a domesticated animal, which no one's going to argue a dog is not a domesticated animal. I mean, you own these dogs. It's different than a coyote. It's different than a bobcat. So from that perspective, you are vicariously liable from a civil context, not a criminal. And that's where I think a lot of people need to understand that. And we'll probably get into it a little bit later. That civil context is you're responsible. So what we did in those contexts is we actually did go against the individuals, with that were running the dogs on the road, because those motorcyclists lost their enjoyment of life and everything else. As to entire state statistics, some of this stuff has not been provided yet, and it's going to take some time before it gets provided. But I will promise you this, and I will guarantee you this: we will publish everything to Army of Orange and every other avenue that we can, so that way you guys know, and you got the same information that we have.
Speaking on that, I agree. Your hunting animal or your private animal is an extension of yourself, so you're responsible. I 100% agree with that. Do you think going forward that hunting club registries with the state of South Carolina might be a way of going, so that maybe speed limits get posted around those areas, so we meet a compromise, to lower your speed to 35? Because now I don't want you hitting my dog more than you want to hit my dog. Would that be something? I mean, majority of us dog hunters, we love our animals. We don't want them on a highway. However, if there is those cases where GPS is quit, or for some reason something happens and the dog ends up on a highway and somebody might, get hurt, would it be reasonable to ask that we lower the speed limits around registered hunting property? Because it's possible we could register that property to slow down on those areas. Most hunting areas aren't but a mile or two wide of public road. So, I mean, it's not like it defeats your GPS purpose of beating the timeline to get to your going location by slowing down a few minutes for us. I'm just saying, if we're going to meet in the middle, that might be a decent compromise. Hitting a dog at 35 is a lot better than hitting him at 65, you know? And at 35, you have more of a time to react if a dog was to enter the roadway. Go ahead, Chad.
Dude, I honestly, that's why stuff like that, proposals like that, are exactly why these conversations are happening. I would be in full support of that, registering the property and then being able to have, signs out to slow it down. That would certainly be a compelling public policy argument. And there is no way I think anybody would be beyond that, because once again, we don't want you guys to lose what you got. And if there's a way to make it safer, that's what we're here to do. We're also here to make it to where it's not a nuisance, and that would certainly curtail the nuisance portion of it. My only concern on that would be, all right, what is it going to be as far as, do you have to have DOT get involved, or SEDNR, and post the signs or whatever else? But those are questions that we're going to have to address in the legislature and in the enforcement of any potentially proposed legislation, if it comes, or any regulations from SEDNR. But yeah, I think that's a great move.
I've got one more question, if I can ask. I myself am an avid coon hunter. I grew up deer hunting with dogs. My dad had 40, 50 head of dogs all my childhood. I've had deer dogs of my own. I'm in 100% agreement with deer hunting with dogs. I just wanted to give a little background in my standpoint. But also from a coon hunter standpoint, which a right to retrieve law affects any kind of dog hunting. When you free cast a dog, well, what are your thoughts and your organization's thoughts on legalizing some kind of way for us to get our dogs back if they do happen to get on somebody else's property?
So that's an excellent question. What I would have to say is we would be opposed to that, because it goes to the very core and marrow of what our organization stands for. You cannot make it to where somebody else could come on your property. If you think of it this way, think of it from like an eminent domain standpoint. So if the federal government or state government was going to, build on your property, they would have to do an assessment before that taking would take place. I believe there are ways where maybe DNR could be utilized about getting dogs off of property, but to make it mandated that somebody else can come on my property, that opens up a real big can of worms. Because what if you end up stepping in a stump, you end up breaking your leg or your ankle, and you're suing me at that point in time? You see what I'm saying? It still violates that particular contingency. So I don't see where we would be, in support of it. But I think there are things that can be done to make it easier to retrieve these dogs.
Okay, that I wasn't necessarily saying just go on a private owner's land and retrieve the dog. I'm saying we need to come up with steps and guidelines to go by, whether it be contact the landowner first, contact DNR, whatever we need to do.
Check.
But I think there should be something in writing that will allow us to go get our dog. I mean, I don't want to leave my dog treed for 5-6 hours behind your house. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to sit there and listen to it.
Oh yeah, well no, and I mean, and to be
That's my point. And some landowners will absolutely not let you go on their land to go get your dog. So what do you do then? You just sit there and wait until your dog might come back by the morning time? I mean, to me, that's causing more harm than me just running in there, grabbing my dog and coming back out, whether it be the landowner wants to go with me or a game board needs to escort me.
Yeah.
That's my point on it.
Well, so landowner going with you, absolutely, you're allowed to do that every time. Unfortunately, during like trapping season, my father and I have had to catch a couple dogs out of foot traps that we had set for coyotes. And we returned them immediately. The problem that I've had on my property, you come to it, you'll see I've got a little kennel there where I'll call the owners. and they can retrieve their dogs, with expediency. If I have to leave, that creates a problem. That's only come up a handful of times. But one of the things is that I do believe there needs to be a way to do it, but properly. And that's the same thing that we're dealing with these nuisance dogs coming on property that we're not supposed to be. Is like where is that middle ground where we can all come to a resolution from the dog hunting perspective and the property owner perspective. But yeah, I don't know what the exact solution is going to be to that question. And unfortunately, you're going to get a lot of lawyer answers, which means I don't know. It's going to be, we've got to fill this out and move forward. And in all honesty, the way I've done this, and like I said, I've been practicing law in South Carolina for almost 20 years. That's why they call it practice of law, not mastery of law. We are working towards getting to mastery, but to date, nobody's got it perfect. So we're going to have to work on that.
We don't punish accidents. We don't punish mistakes. If you turn your dog loose and he gets across out of bounds on your neighbor's property, occasionally, and occasionally means maybe once a season to me. Might mean something different to you, but that's what it means to me. Because as soon as I say my dog will never do something, he's going to go never like he's nevered before. You know what I mean? But if you turn your dog out and he occasionally gets on your neighbor's property, that's an accident, and we shouldn't punish accidents. Somebody said maximum fines and all this other stuff. There's a time and place for that, but the first occurrence is not it, because it could be an accident. The dog could have gotten out of the kennel. The dog could have been taken by some of these animal rights activists that just, oh my God, Stephen, they're wearing Stephen's page out a lot of times. But there's a lot of reasons the dog could have wound up on your property, not because the owner was negligent or whatever. There's a lot of reasons, but that a lot of reasons isn't going to happen every Saturday. So if every time you turn your dog out, it's on your neighbor's property, that's not an accident. That's a habit, and it's a bad habit, and it's something there should be consequences for. That's my position. It's been my position for 12 years. It's been my position since we started the Eastern Carolina Houndsman Alliance. That's the whole reason we started the Eastern Carolina Houndsman Alliance, was to rein in the bad apples. So that's my point, and I'm going to kick it back to you guys. Chafford, if you want to say something else. Let me read a couple more comments. Had a couple. The denial. Most of the arguments in Eastern NC are not the occasional incidents. It's weekly tailgate dumping. I agree totally that occasional dog crossing are not the issue. Michael, I agree with you too. What I just say, I'm not in denial. I'm telling you, me, 100% agree. How do we stop that bad habit? Well, the legislature can stop that bad habit. But the thing is, you don't want to punish innocent people. Tick that is the wrong mindset. We should not punish accidents. We shouldn't punish accidents. Do you think you should get a ticket every time you drive 56 and a 55? Your car is capable of reporting that information. If you drive a newer model car, it already keeps up with how fast you go and what the speed limit is where you're at. It could send a notification to the government and you get a ticket. It is possible. The technology's there. So do you feel like every time you drive 56 and a 55 that you should get a ticket? And one reason why I know the technology is there, because I have a few vehicles and I get a report every week about the vehicles and how they were driven and such. Stephen's over there smiling. You guys can't see him, but he knows what I'm talking about. Telematics is real. So, should you? You're saying that maximum fines all the time. Maybe we should do that. Chad's been talking about motorcycles. I'm going to talk about cars. Maybe you should get a ticket every time you run 56 and a 55, since you're a big stickler on laws. Anyway, I'm going to turn it back over to you guys. I'm not going to mute my microphone anymore, though. I'm going to try not to make any noise.
All right, I got a text from a guy Once got a question for you, Chad.
So, I mean, that is another thing for SCDNR. Can we open up more of those game lands? I mean, once again, that's not going to be something we're in opposition for at all, period. If it gives you houndsmen the opportunity to go out there and do what you do to love while not interfering or affecting our rights, have at it. What you do on your own time is up to you. We don't care. We want you to do it. We want you to enjoy your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. We just want you to have that same respect for our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness as well.
So basically, everything we learned in kindergarten is what we need to look at. Respect your neighbor, keep your hands and feet to yourself, and don't take your neighbor's property. I mean, we all learned that in kindergarten. Am I right?
Well, evidently not everybody, but yeah, we're working on it.
I mean, I agree 100%. Keep your dogs on your own property. When I took over our lease that I have now, first thing I did was make the circle and meet all my neighbors and reassure them, hey, this is what we're going to do. Here's my number. If you have an issue with my member, he won't be a member tomorrow. That's kind of how we did our things. And we got great neighbors. Excellent neighbor. Matter of fact, they shoot a deer, they call me. A lot of misconception is this is dog hunter versus still hunter, and it's not. It's dog hunter against a versus property owner that has to come together, whether your property is for still hunting or cattle or raising goats. That's where this comes down to, is impeding and encroaching on private property. The word private is in the name. How do we keep dogs off of it? It's simple. Stay off, keep your dog off of it. If you can't handle 10 dogs, go down to 9. If you can't handle 9, go to 8. If you have that one stubborn dog, maybe you don't need that dog. It's hard to regulate, because if we ain't careful, we'll lose it. That's my whole perspective on this, is how do we keep everybody happy? And what's going to make, there's some landowners, like Mr. Chaffer was talking about, there's some landowners that will not come to the table. They will not talk to you. You can pull in their driveway. They don't want you there, period. They'll pass you on the road and rev their motor up and speed up as a way of, just shunning you, and how do we get those people to the table? Because those are the people we need to be discussing it with, the people who do not want to have open dialogue at all. Go ahead.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And actually, part of this from our organization's perspective, and I polled a lot of them yesterday. By the way, there's a watch party, I guess, somewhere in Smoke, South Carolina. Hey, Danny and y'all, everybody else. But what I wanted to tell you is, polling our members, we actually want more protections for you guys too. You get bigger penalties for taking a collar off of a dog. Shooting a dog is absolutely asinine and bullshit. And you do not hurt a dog. We do not stand for that. Do not want that at all. Mandatory jail time for somebody that does that, I have no problems for. Have no issues with that whatsoever. That's still your property. How can I advocate for protecting my property when I'm still going to try and kill your property? I understand the juxtaposition in that. And that's where these situations come down to, is having those conversations. What has happened is there has been an acknowledgement from some part, and thank you guys for giving me this forum, the deer hunting community for dog driving, that says, hey, there is an issue here. And I'm saying, yeah, there's an issue here, and let's try and fix it. The first way you start trying to fix a problem is by acknowledging it and then working towards a solution. And you guys have more knowledge on this than I'll ever have, because it's the way in life that you live. I've been, like I said, a couple times when it comes to dog driving, but I don't know enough. And, like I said, I've already, said, I'll go out with somebody. Y'all want to teach me? Teach me. And the more I can learn, the better I can be an advocate for your side and my side. But I have seen it done the right way. And let's just try to get to that middle ground and make sure everybody understands this. These SCDNR meetings are not getting rid of this. It's trying to come to some type of equitable solution. And if anybody has any ideas, we've gotten several that have been promulgated during this particular meeting. Let them be known. There's a lot of comments that are coming in. I see Todd reading them right now, and Stephen, you've had some great ones. And but at the same time, if somebody has some ideas and things like that to fix this problem, put them out front. That's what this process is for.
DNR has made a step in the right direction for the coon hunter, and they've opened up the game lands for 9 months out of the year. But just like the guy that commented that says he lives in the middle of Francis Marion, he lives in the middle of Francis Marion. What do you expect? DNR, they don't open the gates on the game land. So me behind my dog, I'm on foot. I can't keep up with a dog on foot. Nobody can. So there needs to be things done by DNR to give us better access to be able to cut our dogs off, to be able to get in front of the dogs and keep them off of people's land.
I also noticed.
Foot.
I also noticed that you said dog, Chafford. You didn't say dogs.
Dog,
You didn't dump 10 or 15 loose and try
dog.
and keep up with them on foot. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'll turn multiple dogs loose coon hunting, or I'll hunt a single dog. But either way, you're not going to keep up with them on foot.
Yeah, I feel the face that one.
You know, I mean, that's a good.
We having technical difficulties.
No, I'm just trying to make sure I'm not talking over anybody. It kind of gets, it's kind of like being back in court, getting a clear transcript. I'm asking a director cross-examining question and somebody's trying to talk over me. It makes a unclear transcript. But no, Mr. Chafford's absolutely right. When it comes to that is, there do need to be more lines of access. And, I think, for some of these guys, when they're releasing on property, at least as it relates to me, I can't speak for all the property owners in my organization, is when they release on a certain track and area, they have no way to cut the dogs off. And so at that point in time, if you're using the made public road or thoroughway to do that without being able to cut it off, I think you bring up a very valid point that it's maybe the clubs that do have it, hire a company or something like that to come in and cut another fire break. I don't know what the leases are or anything else like that for some of these dog clubs. That's going to have to be on a very subjective basis. But if there is a way to put standers on a line and cut them off before they get on somebody's property, that seems reasonable to me. It doesn't seem like it's that big an ask. And that would alleviate maybe some of the lease problems that are taking place because now those dogs are not coming onto somebody else's property. And so, I mean, it makes total sense.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. I mean, if, for example, there's a big WMA right there in Utahville, South Carolina. We hunted a good bit. There are houses right around it. And there's roads to get all through it, but every gate on the place is locked. And I'm on foot. My dog gets a mile out there and she's in the middle of the block. If I set out to her, by the time I get to her, she's liable to be crossed into somebody else's place. And then I'm a mile in there on foot. I don't have a vehicle. So
come on now, you look a little bit like Forrest Gump. You could definitely get that. You can.
I'm 350 pounds. I can't keep up.
Come on, run, bro. Come on, run.
I will if I got to, but if they would just open the roadways up and we had better access to some of the public lands and stuff, it would alleviate a lot of problems, I think.
I'm in agreement too. Like I said, I have no problems with that. I'll talk with some other individuals. I have no problems with access to public lands whatsoever. That is not our fight. I think that was a very well brought up point at the Florence meeting. I don't know if you're going to be there at the Orangeburg meeting tomorrow. Anybody watching on this, I'll be there. Whether you like me or love me, just don't spit on me. And we'll figure it out because I'm here to fight for you guys as well as my membership and don't want to see any of this go away. It's a matter of taking away those already previously acknowledged bad apples and what do we do to get rid of them and then maybe get you guys a better, satisfaction on your side too. Then that comes, it's got to be a mutual conversation. And we also don't want people coming into this conversation that have no stakeholding relationship in it. Don't want PETA, don't want, anti-hunters, anything else like that. We're going to have to keep that stuff, kind of out, and we admittedly have to work on that on our side, fairly difficult, because they think that, they can come into the Property Protection Alliance, and, my enemy is my friend, I guess is what the Art of War says. However, we don't view it that way.
But I told Stephen and Chad both, I've told them both previously, that nearly 15 years ago, the Eastern Carolina Houndsman Alliance got together, sat down. We had a big committee. We had a state senator there. We had Wildlife Resource Commission. I think we had 2 commissioners there. We had a whole bunch of people. I've got pictures of it. I've got pictures of me on stage with the senator, and both of us speaking. But we discussed having and this is a nasty word in North Carolina right now, because they just did a permit system that I don't like anything about it, to be honest with you. But we discussed having a permit system where that a hunter, not a club, an individual hunter, would receive a permit, and their dog would have identification on their dog. It didn't have to be a number painted on the dog. It'd be on their collar, whatever. But the dog was identified. And a committee would review complaints. If Todd's dog was on Chad Fuller's property and Chad pitched a fit about it, the committee would review that report, and they would look at, well, is this the first time this happened? Mr. Edwards, control your dog better and keep your dog off Mr. Fuller's property. We don't punish mistakes, right? But like I said, if it happened every Saturday, every time I turned the dog loose, if he went straight to Chad's property and run laps for 30, 45 minutes or all day, that's a habit, and that's a bad habit, and that should be punished. And we suggested incremental fines and even revoking the dog permit. Unfortunately, the state of North Carolina, in its wisdom, went with a totally different solution that another group had that was a horrible solution, and we fought it tooth and nail and defeated it. So the same people that were working trying to solve the problem turned around and became the people fighting to continue it, simply because the solution that was proposed was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. So that's, you guys ask what my solution is. My solution is you hold the people accountable that constantly violate. If your dog's constantly on somebody else's property, that's a problem. And I want to keep doing what I'm doing. I want to keep turning the dog loose. I love hearing dogs run. I can shoot, but I prefer to really just run the dog, catch the dog, and go home. When you take a deer, that's when the work starts.
I can tell you, growing up, the way we stopped dogs, you killed the deer. Obviously now we try to manage these deer and let them live, so you have a little harder time catching dogs, but that's how we did it growing up. The bottom line, you need to respect your neighbor, keep your dogs off his property at all costs. We have a rule at the club I hunt with now. You can't visit our club and bring dogs, because 1, we don't know that you can stop your dogs, and 2, you don't know the property. I know the Garmin gives you a map, but until you hunt that property, you don't realize how fast you need to get from point A to point B. Some properties move slower. Dogs don't move through thickets faster. So we don't allow visitors to bring dogs until they visited 3 or 4 times, and we've got to know them, and then we'll let them bring a few dogs to make sure that we're not encroaching on our neighbors. And one of my neighbors, he requests, hey, please don't hunt our side of your property during a certain time frame when they're having kids over there, having like the hunt for the kids, because they don't want us to interfere with them. And we honor that. and we don't never interfere with them. But the whole point is, they ask for a favor, we give them a favor. We ask for a favor, we give them a favor. What the moral, Chad, is we're trying to push is the majority of us dog hunters, whether it's coon, rabbit, hog, we want to be good stewards and good neighbors, and we're trying to find a common goal that achieves that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I agree with that, and that's what this is all about. So I really appreciate you guys. I know we're getting towards like the last quarter hour of it. Y'all ever want me back on? I'd be happy to do it too, because I mean this is the start of it's kind of one of those things that this is just beginning with these open public forums. I'm still be on for the rest of my allotted time. However, if y'all want me back on, I'll give an open invitation and be open and transparent as to what my organization is dealing with. And additionally to that, that's where once DNR in South Carolina, once again, I know there's a lot of people from other states that might be tuning in. This is only as it pertains to here in South Carolina. That legislative process is going to be the very next battle. And as Todd alluded to, we're going to dealing with, the fact that we might get something in there that we have to work together to oppose. Which that's why these conversations need to keep happening, and that free range of communication needs to keep happening. And anybody that wants to reach out to me or my organization, there's a Facebook page. There's also a website. Be happy to hear from you. And as long as it's a civil conversation, I'll never have a problem with that. Even if you tell me to, put it where the sun don't shine, I can understand where you're coming from, but let's do it in a respectful manner, and at least give me some reasons why to put it there.
Hey, Chad, I sent you a text message. I was saying, Chad, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And Stephen, thank you again for another fire podcast. I mean, every time we get together, we set the woods on fire, it looks like. But Chad, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for sharing your ideas with us. And the people that see you at the at these meetings need to come over and talk to you.
I'll be there tomorrow. I will be there tomorrow in Orangeburg. I'll also be there in Walterboro. I wouldn't mind having a conversation with any of you guys, and that's what we're here for. But just please keep it respectful, cordial, and admittedly, I have had some people, threaten me and have some negative things to say. And if that's what you're coming with, please don't, because that's just not what this is about.
I think a lot of it, Chad, is people are afraid of change. They don't understand, and they don't want no change because they're afraid if anything changes, all will change. And the history has shown that with other regulations, with the commercial fishing on the lakes and other things like that. Usually you give a little and they take a lot, and that's why people are so apprehensive to hear your side of things.
Well, I'm going to sign off, guys. Thank you very much for having me on this platform. If you need me again in the future, please feel free to reach out. This thing is not going to get done in one day. It's going to get done over the course of many months and potentially many years. My experience in working to have effective legislation and the effective laws changed, it takes that. So let's keep the dialogue open.